Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
For the record, my name is Tanya Fernandes Anderson, the District 7 City Councilor. I am the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. This hearing is being recorded. It is being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FIOS Channel 964. The Council's budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. Attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at each departmental hearing and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. Our scheduled hearings dedicated to public testimony were on April 26th at 6 p.m. and June 2nd at 6 p.m. You can give testimony in person here in the chamber or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. When you are called to testify, please state your name, affiliation, and/or residence, and limit your comments to 2 minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. Email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. Submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the City Council budget process and how to testify, please visit the City Council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on Docket 0480 to 0482, orders for the FY23 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations for the school department and for other post-employment benefits, OPEB. Docket 0483, orders for capital fund transfer appropriations. Docket 0484 to 0486, orders for the capital budget, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. Our focus area for this hearing will be Office of Human Services. Our panelists for today's hearing are Jose Masso, Chief of Human Services, Rufus Falk, Dr. Rufus Falk, Chief of Public Safety. I am joined today by my counselor colleagues, Counselor Ed Flynn, Council President Ed Flynn, District 2, Counselor Liz Braden, District 9, Counselor Michael Flaherty at large, Counselor Aaron Murphy at large, Counselor Ruzi Louisian at large. For our format today, the panelists will have, since there's only 2 of you, let me know if you need up to 20 minutes, 5 minutes each or up to 20 minutes to present. And then we'll go into our first round of questioning, which I will allow the counselors each 8 minutes to moderate question and answers. Then public testimony in person, then virtual, for 2 minutes. I'll allow them 2 minutes each to testify. And then back to second round, and if time permits, within the 2 hours that I've allocated for this hearing, we'll go to final statements from the counselors. Without further ado, you have the floor for your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, and good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you for this opportunity. And to the members of the council, appreciate you all for being here today. As mentioned, my name is Jose Masso, and I'm the Chief of Human Services. Today I'm joined by Dr. Rufus Falk, Special Advisor to the Mayor on Public Safety. And although he is no longer in our cabinet, he continues to be a key partner and collaborator. I have a very short slide presentation that will speak very briefly on in order to reserve time for questions. Make sure this is on. Sweet. This slide shows the departments, commissions, and offices that are in the Human Services Cabinet. As you know, the Human Services Cabinet is a reconfiguration of the former Health and Human Services Cabinet that existed under Mayors Walsh and Janey. There are 6, Boston Public Libraries, Youth Employment and Engagement, Returning Citizens, Veteran Services, 8 Strong, and Boston Centers for Youth and Families. The departments in our cabinet share the common bond of providing outstanding services, resources, and opportunities to city residents, especially those with the highest needs. This is our mission that we came in with. Now, with that, I want to spend my remaining minutes on the Office of Returning Citizens because I know this is a top priority for many of the council members. Mayor Wu is making a historic investment in the Office of Returning Citizens to give them the staffing and support they need to serve more residents who are returning from incarceration. The budget includes funding for an additional 5 FTEs, which will more than double the current staff and enable them to serve many more returning citizens. It is a top priority of ours to hire and onboard the director of this office as quickly as possible so they can begin to build out the staff and vision for the office. I look forward to providing you updates as we get the office fully operational. Now at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions, unless Dr. Falk, you'd like to add anything?
Just briefly, just wanted to make sure we highlighted the work of Robert Turner and Rupert Saunders, who for the last 2 years now, of a staff of 2, been able to meet many individuals who were returning, where they were at, providing employment referrals, providing them support, and we all can acknowledge that more work could have been done. The capacity never met the expectation, but I think now we're moving to the point where the office can actually be in the position to hurt even more, to assist and support even more individuals. So I just want to make sure I highlighted their work and the leadership of Chief Masso as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation for the entire department? Okay. Thank you. I'll go to my council colleagues first. By order of arrival, Council President Ed Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the important leadership you're providing, and thank you to Rufus and Jose as well for excellent work that you're doing in the city. So let me start off with Rufus. I know you and I, and actually Council Flaherty as well, and many others, we've worked on Corey reform issues. It's still having a significant impact on returning citizens. I was a probation officer, as you know, for 9 years prior to becoming a city councilor. And I know changes, if there were changes in Corey reform, it would have to be at the state level. But is there anything we can do here at the city level to make it easier for people with Corys to access City of Boston jobs? And what else can we do to be more proactive in assisting returning citizens?
That's a great question. So currently we have a program called Project Opportunity that rests within the Human Service Cabinet as well in partnership with the Office of Workforce Development. It's in partnership with Lawyers Clearinghouse and Mass Hire, and it's an opportunity. We do Corey sealing and expungement. We do workforce training. But to your larger question, I think as a city we have to do a better job at leaning on some of our private partners and also sort of taking the lead on the city side and ensuring that for those 13 current job openings, pages of job openings that we have on the City of Boston website, that we are being intentional about reaching out to individuals who were impacted by Corey. So I know we had a few job fairs internally with Human Service Cabinet, but I think honestly we just have to do a better job at sort of addressing the narrative around who is actually deserving of a second chance. And as a city, we have to be the ones leading in that space. So we currently have a program. I would love to send some more information around some of the Corey clinics that we've had, some of the sessions we've had, the number of individuals we've had who had their Corey sealed and expunged. But we can always do more. And I think we need to have more partners in this space around employment and sort of career training and tracks. So hopefully that answers your question, Councilor.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Rufus, and again, thank you for the work you're doing on this important issue. It's a critical issue. And thank you, Jose, as well, for being here. So a couple things I wanted to focus on for Jose. I know you have the Boston Public Library system under your umbrella. Can you give me a quick update or a status on potentially having a new public library in the South End?
I currently don't have a status on that.
Okay.
Council Flynn, but yeah, could get back to you.
Okay. Age. Then I'll go on to age strong, and maybe similar to the question I asked Rufus, but a lot of older workers are now returning to the workforce for financial reasons. How can we make city jobs more accessible for older adults, for residents of Boston that want to come back to the workforce, maybe in the city government? And is there a place for older people in the city government?
It's a great question, Councilor Flynn. Commissioner Shea and her team have done a wonderful job just in terms of being able to address this. I think in addition to job opportunities and workforce opportunities for our aging population, really trying to figure out a way for them to be reintegrated to connect with other folks as well. And so in addition to the $600,000 that they have citywide to support mental health and wellness for older adults, what is that they're looking to do is be able to connect for job opportunities. I know for a fact they have volunteer opportunities. So I could definitely get more details in terms of specifically if there's any programs or resources or services that they're providing with that particular focus in mind.
Thank you. And maybe as a follow-up, thinking down the road, but could Age Strong work with the City of Boston Assessing Department in terms of doing more proactive outreach to residents for older Bostonians, that they might want to kind of do volunteer work where they would get some type of credit on their property tax as well? So it'd be a combination, a partnership maybe between Age Strong and the City of Boston Assessing Department.
That's a great question and a great idea, to which I could definitely connect with the team and find out more about.
Okay. Yeah. I have a couple, probably another minute. So Veterans Services is certainly an important department. I have great respect for the work, the mission they do there. Outstanding leader and Commissioner Santiago as well. What are we doing? And I've talked to the mayor about this several times. And again, I communicate with Veteran Services several times a week. How can we be more proactive in terms of providing more outreach to returning veterans, but especially women veterans?
Yeah, Commissioner Santiago and his team have really focused on the intentionality around engagement and really figuring out ways to engage the veteran population. I don't know specifically to women, but I'm sure there's some gaps in terms of like my knowledge and understanding of what is that they're doing, but that we could definitely follow up with you on. Okay.
In my final point, BCYF, I've been working with Boston Public Schools in the mayor's office on swimming pools, the important role swimming plays in our city. We're a coastal city, trying to get more kids from Boston with access to swimming lessons, especially students in BPS, students of color, or immigrant students. But what's important for me also is making sure our BCYF facilities have swimming pools that are working and lifeguards that are trained. So going forward, I know it's a big conversation, but it's a top priority of mine to fix all our swimming pools, to develop partnerships with BCYF and BPS. The YMCA has been a great partner, but giving kids the opportunity to have swimming lessons, especially students of color and students with disabilities, immigrant students, But can we say on top of that going forward, so that is a priority?
Yeah, we can, Council Flynn, for sure. That is a priority of mine as well, and so I know the BCYF team, and as was mentioned at the BCYF budget hearing, had elevated it as well. So thank you, and it's noted.
Okay, excellent. Madam Chair, I have no further comments or questions. Just want to say thank you to the two panelists for their important leadership in this city.
Thank you, Council Flynn.
Thank you, Council President Flynn. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks. Good to see you. It's a change to see people face to face. These in-person budget hearings are a novelty after 2 years of COVID. So, let's see. Youth employment and engagement. Do you have a number of staff of youth workers or in that particular division that are deployed in Alston, Brighton? And how do you coordinate with Boston Public Schools?
So the first question is, do we have staff deployed in Alston Brighton?
Yes, the youth employment and engagement team. You know, how many folks have you got out in Alston, Brighton?
I don't know that answer, but I could follow up and get to you. Yeah.
You know, I think we talk a lot about returning citizens and supporting returning citizens. I think it's really important to try and stop them engaging, getting involved with the criminal justice system in the first place. So we've had a increasing instance of kids in our neighbourhood getting into trouble, and when we try to get youth workers, we got money from the state for youth workers a couple of years ago, and BCYF was unable to utilise that resource, and so it's really concerning to me as a city councillor for Alston Brighton that we have a population of 74,000 and we don't seem to have any structure in place to support our youth who are desperately in need of some support and guidance and keep getting them into good habits and trying to keep them out of trouble, basically. So I'd really like to dig in on that issue with you offline.
Yeah, I will welcome that.
And then City Jobs with their Elder Volunteer Work-Off Programme, which has been in place since the Menino administration, is a wonderful programme. But we're finding that I'd really like to have an inventory of the number of volunteer positions that are available by district across the whole city. It seems that there's just a handful of people who can actually avail of these opportunities, and especially out in Alston Brighton, it doesn't make sense for an elder to have to travel across the city when they only get paid minimum, get credited minimum wage for 4 hours, whatever hours they work, and yet they spend an hour travelling each way. So I'd love to get a breakdown of inventory of volunteer positions available within city by district, and especially with an emphasis on Alston Brighton.
Okay.
I know folks volunteer in the senior centre. Some folks maybe volunteer in the libraries, but the other problem we have out in Alston Brighton is we don't actually have that many city-owned. We don't have that much of a city infrastructure apart from fire department, police, libraries, and schools. But it's something I want to look into. It's a great help to folks who are living on a limited income and fixed income to be able to write off some of their, to get some credit towards their real estate taxes, which are increasing every year. Yes. And then BCYF, with regard to the Alston, the Jackson Man Community Centre, I know it's going to close this time next year. It'll probably be many, many years before we get to rebuild a new one. And hopefully we'll have a state-of-the-art new community centre in Union Square where it belongs. But in the meantime, in that interim, what are our plans for providing all the services? It's the only one we have, so once it closes, it's gone. So what are our plans to provide the services that are provided by the Jackson Man? So it would be adult education, childcare. It's an FEMA emergency centre. It's a heating and cooling centre. Adult education. There's a lot goes on there, and I'd really like us to have a plan, and so that we can If we need to find other, good luck with this, find other locations in the neighbourhood where these services can be delivered until such times as we have a new community centre. So I think that's something that really flag up and hope that we can work on diligently and have a plan sooner rather than later, because there's going to be a lot of, we're going to have to lease space or acquire space to provide that services in the interim.
Agreed. So I appreciate that. I actually would love to work closely with you on identifying how it is, how we execute the plan. I do plan on actually visiting Jackson Man this Wednesday, and so I'll be able to see firsthand the services in which they provide, but we don't have a full plan as of yet, but once again, working close partnership with you to really identify what a comprehensive plan would look like, I think would be great. So I welcome that partnership.
Yeah, and you know, we don't have a swimming pool. We have sports facilities there. They use the gym, but you know, it's the adult education programs, the childcare, you know, the availability of a heating and cooling centre. And then, you know, you're also in charge of Age Strong. So the Veronica Smith Senior Centre is an Age Strong facility. It needs to be ramped up and available as a cooling centre. Last summer we had a weekend of extreme heat, and we didn't have a cooling centre in Alston Brighton, and that's just not. And I really do feel that we have to sort out this turf war that goes on between BCYF and PPS. If we need a cooling centre in our district, we can't be having nothing available for our elders and folks who are vulnerable when we have 100 degree days in the neighbourhood. It's just not acceptable. So I hope we can fix that.
Agreed.
And that's the library. Do we have an ETA, an expected date? Do we have a timeline for when the Faneuil Branch Library might be opening again? I'm anticipating it'll be early, like late February, March next year. Is that a reasonable expectation? And how's it going?
I'm looking to my team to see if there's any answer there. There's a afternoon. In the afternoon here with BPL.
Okay, we're having an after, because everything's on this. I'm confused about the schedule here. I will ask that question this afternoon then. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well.
Thank you. So I think it's very fitting that your last slide ended on that, because thank you for all you do. And when you look at your cabinet and the work and the support you provide, it's so important. It's including, you know, libraries, the education, our youth, employment, returning citizens, our seniors, our families. So thank you for all you do supporting them. With the veteran services, are we doing enough, or can we, I guess the answer is always we can do more, but around the mental health and wellness, but also around housing and the outreach. I'm the chair of Veteran Services, so I often work closely with Rob Santiago, and their commission is wonderful. And we are the best in the state, maybe the country, Massachusetts, for veteran services, but that outreach piece, we have a lot of veterans who don't know that, you know, even if they did one day of service here in the state of Massachusetts, they can access a lot of services we have. So is there something we can do to really increase that outreach to our veterans, knowing that there are services separate from others that they probably qualify for also?
That's a great question, Councilor Murphy, and I do appreciate your support. So I would love to have them join us here today, but nonetheless, they could definitely speak to it better than I can. But they have a strong emphasis and focus on the engagement piece and how it is that they can actually engage more veterans throughout the community. And it goes with partnerships. There are many partnerships that they have existing throughout the state. But to your question of how it is that we could basically increase the engagement opportunities to be able to provide better services, for sure. Don't know if they have a direct plan in regards to that, but we could definitely find out for you.
Okay, thank you. And for our seniors, I know they do a wonderful job in Age Strong, and the isolation is something seniors have struggled and suffered with always, but this pandemic really showed us that it hit them hard. Is there increased funding for kind of immediate increase in programming around the isolation piece that our seniors have faced these last couple years?
Yeah, they definitely a strong emphasis on the isolation. And as you know, on the heels of the pandemic, this has been a concern and an issue pre-COVID, and even more so after the fact. And so there's a population of our aging population that have just been disengaged, fearful, rightfully so. But what the commission has been able to do is really be able to elevate the partnerships that they have throughout the community to address that very issue as far as social isolations. They also have money invested to be able to start a community ambassador program for part-time ambassadors to be able to help connect city resources to seniors throughout the community that need it most. And so that will also address the isolation component.
And on returning citizens, you know, once they've paid their debt to society, they're out, we really need to support. And are we doing enough? I know others have talked about it already, and in other hearings we have touched on this, but that workforce development to make sure that we're supporting pre and then once out, that they have access and the skills needed to acquire good paying jobs, so that housing and all of the other issues that come along with that aren't plaguing them still.
No, absolutely. We had a part of the Human Service Cabinet. We have a program called Operation Renew. Operation Renew is in partnership with the Federal Probation, the Gavin Foundation. We just recently had a graduation for 2 individuals who matriculated through the process of actually going through the training, doing some holistic work, not only working on their employability, but also working on their mental health as well. We had it at Setford Construction. They are in the process of being pipelined into the building trades, but that's just a small piece. I think a part of this work has to go into the stigma. There's a stigma attached to individuals who are returning or who have quarries, and as a city, we need to do a better job at addressing that point and that piece. But some good work is happening, but we need to do more of it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, on our BCYF, and Councilor Braden touched on it, but working in a school which was connected to a community center for many years, and just myself as a mom or myself going to community centers, there's definitely a turf war between the school system, BPS, and our non-standalone community centers, which really stop them from being able to do programming during the day. The only centers that really are able to support our seniors or young children preschool age are those standalone ones, because the programming can't start till the afternoon once school is out. So hoping that we can get better at that and find a way to really have a better relationship with the BPS, so that our community centers that are attached to our public schools are able to be used during the day also for programming. And then overall, always think we should be supporting and increasing the funding for programming. I know that the council's attached to our BCYF, so what really their fundraising efforts are what drive the programming at most of these community centers. So overall increase in programming would be great, and also the swimming access and water safety. I know other councils have always touched on that, but making sure that we're increasing our swimming lessons and swim safety across the city.
Agreed. I made it a priority to visit all sites within my first 100 days. I've gotten to, I would say, about 15 so far. And I've had the opportunity to be able to see, you know, some examples of best practices where the schools and the community centers are really working closely together, and where the communication is aligned with the priority of being our communities and our young folks. I think the issues that you address are really spot on, especially how it is that we're able to support our aging population during school hours and also during the summer months as well. And so these are all things that are coming up as themes during my visits, but that is the top priority of really figuring out a way to be able to build a better collaboration and partnership to be able to serve the population, which we all have as a goal.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Lujan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank my colleagues for asking questions around BCYF. I think it's really important that we strengthen the connectivity there, especially during the summer. So excited to know that you're leaning in and doing that work for BCYF. Also, welcome to City Hall. I know that we're asking you a lot of questions and you're still relatively new, Chief Masso, so thank you for leaning into the work. I have two questions that I want to ask, one about Age Strong and one about YEE, and then I'm going to jump into ORC for as long as the chair will let me. One of the issues that we hear from seniors often is about, like, we put out these applications, whether it's repair for homes or, assistance on food, and there's still a gap between the seniors' ability to know about these programs and like the technical assistance necessary to fill out the applications. Like, what have you started working or thinking about ways that we can simplify access for our seniors in providing that technical assistance? And if not, just wanted to put a pin there to make sure that that's something that we're thinking about. Because as much as we can reduce the barriers that our seniors, anyone really, our immigrant communities, any community that has trouble accessing resources, we should do that. And so we sometimes hear about the technical assistance that they need to complete paperwork. And so I'm just hoping, I know that we have advocates in Age Strong. I don't know if it's more advocates or what we need to make sure that our seniors are getting the assistance in filling out the paperwork.
That's a really great point, Councilor, and I do appreciate that. I was on a call with the senior council on Friday, and something that they uplifted was communication and ways in which to be able to communicate with the senior population, and seeing that as a priority. And so, to your point, really figuring out ways to implement best practices and tools and resources to make sure that we're actually getting them the information they need in the way that they need to receive it. And so that's one. The second piece, as far as the technical assistance, the beauty, if you will, with this cabinet is that we have the infrastructure. We have the libraries, we have the community centers in which folks can be able to access. And once again, to Councilor Murphy's point, we want to make sure that it's accessible, right? And so that we have programs in place to be able to support our senior population, that they can actually have the technical assistance, that they can actually navigate this in the way that they need to. And so I think it's a two-step process, because first, we have to definitely ramp up our programming. We have to make sure that those supplies in the computer systems are in place. And then we have to make sure that we're actually getting the communication, that we're actually actively getting it out to our residents to make sure that they know that this exists, and then that they can actually access these resources that are made available to them. So that is of utmost priority, and I think that is one of the greatest opportunities that we also have as well.
Thank you. And I just encourage you, Age Strong works with them and knows about their work, but Mass Senior Action really takes the lead here on really advocating for the needs of seniors, and it's an issue that they've brought up several times, so just hoping that we work in deep partnership with community here on that issue. Second question is if you could give us an update on Success Link, and like when is it, what's the timeline, how many applications have we received, issues of capacity, if you can just talk to us about that.
Sure, I don't have the exact numbers off the top, but I think at the time it was roughly around 1,500 that were in queue, with about 3,500 or so applications received. That number has probably increased since the last time I'm giving you data numbers, but nonetheless, I think there's a multi-step process, as you know, from the application to the paperwork process to onboarding. It's pretty detailed. But I think we are on track to where we were in previous years, and so that's what it is that we're actually basing it off of. So where we were last year and the year before, and we have a weekly tracker in which we're actually identifying like how many young people are actually coming in and actually receiving jobs. Okay.
I was wondering if, I'm going to put a formal request into the chair so that we can get those updated numbers, and so that we know more about capacity. So if you could just give us the data that you have around Success Link, that would be great.
Will do.
I'm excited, obviously, to see the increase in the budget for Office of Returning Citizens. I credit a lot of that work to a lot of the advocates, a lot of folks who are here today, in partnership with our office, working with Councilor Referral, and really uplifting how we need to invest in an office that really hasn't been given, as you said, Dr. Falk, the power that we wanted to have. And so what I'd first like to hear is, we've seen an increase of, we said 1.28, now the budget is about almost 1.9, which is the ask of community. What do we have a breakdown of what that budget entails?
Sure. So as of right now, we have...
And this is something I've been asking the administration for some time. What is that $1.9 million breakdown? What does that look like?
Okay. Well, we have what we're aiming for as of right now is to hire the director. So that is of utmost priority. Waiting on figuring out the systems to be able to actually get it posted, and I'll definitely gladly share it with the council once it is posted. So that's one. So that's one position. And then after that, just 5 additional positions. And so we have case managers, we have another role as far as like the workforce support, and then a clinician as well. And so that was included within the current budget, and then the additional
A mental
funds-
health clinician?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, to just piggyback off of Jose's point, we have those 5 additional staff people working in liaison positions to not only be inside our locked facilities, we're talking about the House of Corrections, Department of Corrections, and then DYS to make sure that the reentry process starts before individuals actually are released. It has to start when the actual individuals actually are incarcerated, but due to capacity issues, we haven't been able to establish relationships necessary with those reentry managers that are actually in those locked facilities. These additional staff will allow us to do so. Additionally to that, we are continuing our work with Kimberly Rutan, who produced the Office of Return and report. So we're actually now looking at some of the other gaps that were identified. We're talking about the documentation in terms of Social Security cards, birth certificates, as well as we're also looking at to address some of the transportation issues in terms of what does it look like to assist a individual who needs help with their mobility around moving to the city to their opportunities. We're also looking at having some contractor positions that can actually close up some of the gaps that exist that aren't currently within the city's purview. We know that there are certain departments that do level of work, whether it be food justice, Age Strong, that we can partner with, the office can partner with, but there also are external partners that do a level of work that may need to be contracted as well in order to bring that network into this returning citizen space that already exists. We also recognize that the Office of Returning Citizens, it can't be all things to all people, and that it has to be a key sort of part of this puzzle, but the city has we have a major role that we have to play that we haven't really been pulling our full weight, but it's an opportunity for us to be more in that space. So in terms of full breakdown of where the additional funds are going, a bulk of it is going to be going towards establishing those, closing those gaps that we've identified in service delivery. Oftentimes individuals will come to the Office of Returning Citizens with an expectations of resources that they'll be receiving and would leave frustrated. And we want to make sure that we're very clear about what the office's role is in terms of you're going to come in, you'll be able to receive a referral, you'll be able to receive some tangible things. Then we'll also have a network that will be able to connect you to the things that we don't have under our purview. So we'll give you a full breakdown on what that looks like ASAP.
Thank you. And just another formal request of the chair for those
Absolutely.
numbers. And then I guess another question I have is regarding one of the issues that you hear a lot about from folks who are formerly incarcerated is access to housing.
Yep.
If you could talk about what you've seen and what the office has seen with respect to the housing needs that, in a population that has really, when we talk about housing and we talk about stability, we know that it's key to successful reintegration and to reducing recidivism and correcting the policy harm of mass incarceration, of over-policing of Black and brown communities. Housing is integral. So what have you seen from the needs of the housing needs of formerly incarcerated, and how can we, what are some ideas that you have that we can help meet that critical housing need? Or some examples you've seen either here or in other cities of what we can be doing better, because there's a lot of interest and a lot of support to get that work done.
Absolutely. So the housing needs that we've been confronted with, what I've seen over the last 3 years have been very complex. We have individuals, so everything from single room occupancies to individuals who have been in the city of Boston for over 4 years, 5 years, who still don't have consistent housing, but are working full job, who have gainful employment, who could transition into either a home ownership opportunity or a rental opportunity. In terms of the office, the only consistent housing that we've been able to provide over the last 3 years has been to sober living units, and that's just not acceptable. So what I would say is that what we've been looking at, the push that I've been making, that we have to be intentional around actually developing housing options for this population, not only those who are returning, but those individuals who are impacted by CORI, who oftentimes, because of that stigma, are losing out on opportunities for housing options. So what I would say is we need a variety of housing opportunities. We need vouchers, we need single room occupancies, we need more home ownership opportunities that are intentional around individuals who are impacted by CORI. We have to name that. I think we also need to name CORI as being an individual who should be a part of a protected class, where we are able to sort of alleviate some of the sort of red tape that sometimes exists with this population. at the end of the day, we have to be intentional around this policy, and I don't think we have been so. So I think this is an opportunity to move towards that point. I know we have some additional funds that are coming down around housing. It'll be good that we have some funds specifically carved out for individuals who are impacted by Corey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Falk, for your work, and I look forward to working with both of you on these issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lujan. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Chair. Good morning, Chief. Good morning, Rufus. Good morning. Just a couple things. Chief, do you have an update on, we did a feasibility study on a Dorchester community center, like there were multiple sites that we're looking at. Have we settled on a site? What does that look like? Are you familiar with it?
I am familiar with, thank you. We don't have an update as of now. I know working closely with Chief Irish and his team on identifying actually like a site assessment. It had gotten rescheduled, but I think that's definitely on the calendar to make that happen. So I don't think we settled on the site. We're just going to do overall site assessment.
Do you know, what are the sites that are still on the table now?
I don't know them off the top of my head. I know Councilor Worrell had brought it up during the previous budget hearing, but that's, I believe, some information we could get to you.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the field house over in Columbia Point? Have you seen that proposal?
I have not, no.
Okay, I'll send it over to you.
That'd be great.
And one of the criticisms that I have is once we have the idea to build a community center, it's gonna take us 5, 6, 7 years to do with the field house. We can have built in a couple of years, public-private partnership, looking for some money out of the city, but that's kind of a different story. Can you talk a little bit about, it's probably you, Rufus.
Yeah.
You know, we're focused, when Office of Returning Citizens, you talked about increasing contracts for workforce development and training. What type of, so what are we training towards? Who are we engaging groups that will do that workforce training? What's that gonna look like? It's great that we have the contracts, but can you break it down a little bit for me? What's in your head and what do you envision?
I think it'll be a combination of public and private. Within the city's Office of Workforce Development, we do a number of trainings. Currently, we're in the process of doing a CDL training.
With the Teamsters?
Exactly. So there's an opportunity to expand upon that with some additional funding, but also there are some private individuals, whether it be working with Suffolk Construction, whether working with an NEI contracting, or in some other industries. We've been looking at, we've been looking at the aeronautics industry because, again, Boston and Metro Boston and Massachusetts is a hub. We're thinking about everything from Logan. We're thinking about Boeing. We're thinking about Hanscom Air Force Base. There are a number of career path opportunities that aren't really being tapped into, specifically for individuals coming from Roxbury and Dorchester, Mattapan, who might not even know that that's even an opportunity. So we've had some initial conversations with the Aviation Academy around some training over there.
Where is that?
That is located in Concord, Mass.
Oh, okay.
In Concord, Mass.
So like aviation mechanics and aviation maintenance,
so
aviation.
Everything from fixing the planes to actually buying and selling planes. So there's a entire industry that, again, many individuals from some of the neighborhoods that we serve don't even know that that's even an opportunity for them. So we're thinking about some public and private opportunities, expanding some of the existing workforce training programs that we have in terms of partnership with the mass hires of the world, but also with Office of Workforce Development that are doing EMT training, that are doing the CDL trainings. If we expand upon it, but also have a focus on individuals who are impacted by Corey.
So I found the EMT and the CDL to be the most effective. We went into it originally to train to get people to work for us at Public Works or Transportation, and they're getting gobbled up before they get a chance to get to us because we aren't necessarily competitive in our wages. Have you what have you done to get into the biotech industry, research development or manufacturing? Do you have any opinions on those?
I have a very basic understanding of the industry.
Yeah.
If you, I would love to partner with you to figure out what it would actually look like to build a successful pipeline to that industry. I know, again, Boston's a hub for this industry, yet we don't have the training options right now, specifically in that Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan area. So I would love to have an opportunity.
Well, the industry's looking at millions of square feet coming, and if that happens, it happens. But that needs to happen. We need the workforce to be able to fill those jobs. And talking with the industry a lot, trying to get their mindset to change a little bit, because there's a multitude of jobs that you can go in there and not necessarily have to have an associate's or a bachelor's. And I think what I'm trying to do in my district, and because I have a large new lab research and development coming in, I tried to make the building as, for lack of a better term, porous as possible, so people have the ability to come into it and see it,
Yeah.
see what a lab space is. And I'm working with a group. I don't know if you know the People's Academy or not, but
Absolutely.
working with them to try and maybe set up a shop for them, bring people into it, and start that type of training first. But within that training, you're also exposing people to the labs. This is what this looks like, because I'll speak for me. I don't know how old you are, but like job training before was plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and when you first get into that space as an electrician, say, you would need to know the tools, and you would need to know the terminology, and you would need to know the materials that you're using. No different when it comes to the bio space. I think there's opportunities there, and I know that once we get some people in that may only have a high school education, we're gonna identify people that can absolutely go further on, attach it to UMass, and do the associates, do the bachelors over there. But I'm definitely working on some stuff. I'd love to bring you down to the beat and have you look at it and see how I'm trying to connect the industry, because we need the industry, the biotech industry, to buy in to us, into the city of Boston. They want to come and build millions of square feet, but they need to buy into us, our people, and make those jobs available. And when you talk to the biotech people, they want to, but they just can't get out of their own way, because it's almost you're dealing with that scientist sort of mind, and you have to separate the scientist mind and go to a social mind and say, let's figure out how we get people in the door. But I'd be interested in talking to you a bit about that. And you had mentioned the Gavin House a little bit. You working with the Gavin House on? Do you work with? You doing any housing with them?
So they are...
Like you said, most of the success you're having is in the sober housing.
Yes.
Are you dealing with them?
And that's specifically for the individuals who are coming out of federal prison, who are on federal probation, that are going to the Gavin House for employment, but also for the mental health support. That's a part of our Operation Renew program that you've spoken at a few times with the graduation. So we're trying to expand upon that as well. But what I would also say, sort of going back to your previous point, was that we do have some successes that we can sort of point to that can be some evidence for the scientists in terms of the Operation Exit program, that we've had some successes with individuals going into some trades who traditionally might not have gone into the building trades, but have been successful, who are journeymen and women now. So we can sort of point to that as some evidence that we've had some experience in this space, and it'll just be moving to another industry. So I would love to partner with you on that.
And my criticism that have been leveling is we've had all this ARPA money come in, and it seems like it's just being spent, and I'm trying to figure out, what are we spending on infrastructure? Are we building anything for that? Are we building places that people can actually go to that are gonna make them more of a healthy individual when it comes to mental health, when it comes to job training? I've sat on the Housing Trust and the Jobs, I'll finish up right here, Housing Trust and the Jobs Trust, and I find that we take our linkage money and we break it up into small parts and kind of sprinkle the infield instead of keeping it together and going all in on major projects. And I want to show you also a project I have going on with the People's Academy, which is sort of wraparound housing above a job training space on the bottom, up on Warren and Quincy. Well, it's, Warren, Quincy here.
Okay.
We have a space, we have a building designed. Come sit with me, let's get a look at it. I'll run you through the project, and I look at it as attaching the housing with something like the Gavin House or Bridge Over Troubled Waters or someplace that does housing and job training. It needs to be done together, and we need to, when they're coming back, they need to be living with people that have lived the same experience and be able to mentor. So
absolutely.
in the next couple of weeks or so, or even sometime this summer, let's sit and I want to show you that. And thank you for the work you guys do. And I'm going to send you the field house.
Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Coletta?
Madam Chair, and congratulations, Chief Masso. Look forward to working with you. Good to see you, Dr. Falk. I have a lot of love and respect for your employees, especially Commissioner Santiago, Commissioner Shea, and the many individuals who work at our community centers. I'm pleased to see the investment in ORC and for clarity provided around FTEs and services that will be coming online for these folks. I also love hearing about the workforce training program in partnership with Massport. Is that something that is already up and running, or you're just in conversations with Massport around that particular program?
Which, maybe I misspoke. I don't remember bringing up Massport, but Massport is a partnership that I would love to partner with. We were talking about moving into the aeronautics industry.
Right.
The initial conversation I had was actually with the actual training facility, and they were doing an assessment and basically letting us know the sort of multitude of employment options and opportunities that were there. So I would love to have a continued conversation with Massport, an initial conversation with Massport about what potentially can be a training opportunity and options over there. So we're really looking to expand upon our intentional career training programs with actually getting with individuals who traditionally haven't had access to these opportunities and career opportunities and also training opportunities. So I would love to have an opportunity to have a conversation with Massport and love to have you be a part of the conversation as well.
I would love to be a part of those conversations and create a bridge, and focusing in on East Boston residents too. I think
Absolutely.
too often East Boston residents don't even use the airport as much as other communities,
Wow.
but we bear the burden of a lot of the pollution. And I've said it ad nauseum that we breathe ultrafine particulates, and but I do think that it is a good economic engine for our community. So if there's an opportunity to get more East Boston folks there, and it is good jobs, right? And it's well-paying jobs. So that is something that I would be interested in working with you on. I'm going to dive into Soar. I absolutely love this department and that program. There are amazing individuals in East Boston who work with Maverick Landing, as you know.
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet with them back in 2019 and learn about the work that they're doing in the Maverick area. There is always activity happening there, and those kids are looking for ways to keep busy. Some kids get off the right track, but I think with Soar, you all are building trust and you're helping them find their purpose, and I think it's incredible. I want to know how many outreach workers are employed under Soar right now and what their average salary is, and then also how many, you probably don't have the numbers in front of you, but how many are deployed in East Boston and maybe even Charlestown, given the recent uptick in violence?
Great, thank you, Counselor. As of right now, the number I do have available is we do have 30 employees currently in the SOAR. Mm-hmm. The average salary we could get to you, and the ones deployed in those two neighborhoods that you mentioned, I could also send you that information as well.
Great, thank you so much. We do have, like I said, just an uptick in violence in Charlestown, and I would love to see the program expand there. There's an incredible organization called Turn It Around that maybe you could partner with. Maswati Hanks is doing great work there, and we actually have circles, restorative justice circles, that we organize every month, and we started that after the murder of George Floyd, and that's something that they're carrying on. So would love to have both of you there at some point. We meet every third Tuesday of the month. So just as a way to get introduced to that area of Charlestown, I'd love to have you there.
That'd be great, thank you.
For BCYF, I just want to shout out Eddie McGuire, Nicole De Silva DeLisi, and Joe Weddleton as incredible people in my district doing great work. The Nazaro Center, so programming for our seniors and our kids, I just filed a budget amendment to expand programming specifically for our kids. A lot of the times they just go into open gym and they don't really have anything else to do. And so just putting on your radar that has happened, and I would like to see that programming expand, particularly in the Nazaro Center. And then for capital planning, it's gone through study, it's gone through design. This is a legacy of Sal Matina back in 2009. He asked for this to be in the capital plan. So I would like to start seeing some capital dollars allocated for the construction of the new Nazaro Center. I don't know if you have any update on that or where that currently stands, Chief?
I don't have an update, but I know it's part of the capital budget planning for FY23. So the new design is set to begin. Investments have been set aside. That's all I have as far as that. So no additional update, but noted, sure.
Okay, yeah, I would like to see a commitment in the capital.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to Charlestown. So there is a community engagement process that's starting right now for the community center in Charlestown. Wondering if you have any sort of idea of timeline. I know you just started, but what you're hoping to solicit from the community and any idea of how long this community engagement process will last, only because that center in particular needs significant investments. So just wondering if you have any more information on that.
Sure. I don't have an answer in regards to timeline. What I will share is that in addition to visiting these centers, I'm really committed to the community engagement process and really ensuring that the center will actually meet the needs of the community. And so it's one thing, I think typically what is that you encounter is somebody coming in and saying, hey, I have this great idea on either program, services, or a center, and it just misses the mark, right? And the implementation also misses as well. And so I really want to be clear that throughout the process, and to be quite frank, as a former community organizer, just recognizing that we'll take as much time as needed to make sure that we actually meet the needs of the community. And so I really do want to uplift that. And so without putting any parameters around that, I think we can put a structure in place in terms of a plan. But as far as the timeline, I really want to be flexible to make sure that everybody's feels as if their voice was heard, that they had input, and that they were engaged.
I actually love hearing that because there are so many different populations in Charlestown that want to see so many different things there. You have a group of parents who are focused on athletics. There's another group of parents who are focused on aquatics, right? And so bringing the pool conversation to the forefront here. Now I have heard because that pool was built in 1949, it needs significant investments, and I don't know if you have an update on that, if it's going to be open this year, if you've been able to tell the community what's going on. I don't know if you want to go on record right now as to what's going on with the pool.
What I will share is that we're getting a third-party assessment this week to be able to give us more information about the actual the infrastructure and whether or not it will be feasible or not to actually open it for this summer. And so we'll have more information hopefully after this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to move towards H Strong, and again, shout out to Commissioner Emily Shea. I look forward to opening up the East Boston Senior Center. It's going to be great, and congratulations to Lena Tremelli for getting that position. And I just want to uplift Councilor Braden's request for a list of jobs for our seniors. I have folks constantly calling me just asking what is available, so having it in one place and being able to, not just online, point them to go online, but have a physical list I can give to them, because a lot of them don't have computers.
Yeah.
That would be extremely helpful. So I just wanted to uplift that request.
Yeah.
And I think I will reserve my line of questioning for the second round.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Some of my questions are for Office of Veterans Services. So you've created a food intake form to help our veterans with their families to attain. Oh,
This happens when I come
you
in
are
late.
never forgettable. I don't know how that happened.
I don't know. I work really hard to make sure that whatever little 2 years I have left on this council, that I make sure I use my voice as much as possible. So I'm always going to make sure that I make my presence known.
Councilor Mejia, I apologize. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you both. I'm excited. This is, I think, one of the areas where we need to be pouring in more resources and financial investments, right? Because you guys are doing the work that really are going to keep our communities whole and well. And oftentimes you are the least funded when you look at that budget pie. So I think there's a lot of work to do as we start thinking about what investments look like in human services. So I just, if we could just talk a little bit about coordination. I always talk about the fact that Boston is resource rich, but coordination poor. Mm-hmm. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how you and what your vision is to kind of have more of a interconnected vibe moving forward?
That's a great question. I definitely do agree. I mean, being Boston born and raised, I recognize how many things operate in silos, right? In running a nonprofit prior to my role here, I definitely recognize it as well. And typically what it is, what I've identified and I learned is that a lot of folks are doing phenomenal work and keeping their head down and just getting the work done. And they're meeting the residents with the most needs, right? And so being able to take a step back and with this cabinet, so your point is just like, even within the cabinet, I want to make sure that all of my departments are working closely together, right? We have the infrastructures. I want to make sure that the libraries are working closely with our community centers, are working closely with Strong, Veteran Services, et cetera, right? And that's going to take first community team building. So I really just envision that component. And then building strong relationships with the council, with you all, to make sure that we are not missing, we don't have any blind spots and there's no gaps. As I mentioned to Councilor Coletta, just in regards to the community engagement process, I really want to be intentional about that. Because as I did mention, there's a lot of initiatives that actually get lifted off the ground, but when implementation comes, it misses the mark. And typically what that is somebody coming in with ideas of saying, hey, I'm gonna do this. And honestly, I'm coming into this role really want to do listening and learning. In addition to visiting the sites and locations and meeting with the people on the ground level, also meeting with the community members to make sure that I'm hearing the voices of those impacted most.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I also think it's really important for us to recognize that the city can't do it all, right? And there are a lot of nonprofit organizations who are doing the work alongside you, and that coordination extends to figuring out ways that we can lean in and also support and see ourselves as a part of a larger ecosystem. Because there is this expectation that one organization is going to do it all or the city is going to make it all happen. But in fact, I have seen young people go from the Boston Youth and Family Center to now being, doing intervention under Soar. They're running around in different circles, and some of their grandparents are dealing with some of these issues. So I think if we look at our community as a whole and really start thinking about strategically how are we connecting those dots, then we can save time, energy, and more importantly, the lives of those that we're trying to serve. So I appreciate that level of intentionality, and I also think it's important for us to the users of our the Boston Youth and Families in terms of input. I think that in terms of the evaluation and the surveys, we should definitely ask people how are they experiencing our services, and are we meeting their mark? Because I find that oftentimes we create for and not with. So I really do appreciate you thinking about community voice, because at the center of everything that we do, it should be informed by those who are doing the work or living the reality. So I'm glad that that is part of the as a community organizer, I knew that you would bring that level of intentionality, so I'm excited for that. Dr. Folk, I want to talk a little bit about returning citizens. I did a lot of work back in the day with the Sheriff's Department through an initiative called Family Matters, where we worked specifically with loved ones who had someone behind the wall, if you will. And the goal was to really set them up for success when they came home. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen. There's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt. So part of that, building that infrastructure, when we think about our returning citizens, yes, the basics are really important. Yeah. Jobs, work, a place to stay. But I'm just curious about kind of like what work, if any, is being done in the office to really build that relationship that has been damaged with community and family.
That's a great question. The whole idea around family reunification and community reunification is, to be frank, it's a topic that we've done by happenstance, but it hasn't been a program specific around that. I know personally I have conversations with individuals in MCI Norfolk every day with the Young Men's Committee and AAC, just talking about some of the work that they're doing around trying to ensure that not only behind the wall, they're starting the process of healing, but what happens when you come home. And also talking about, which is just the sad reality that oftentimes our women who are being released often deal with more stigma than our men are dealing with in terms of when they're returning. How do we sort of address some of those some of the stigma that's attached to being incarcerated? So to be frank, right now, we don't have a program that is specifically looking at family reunification, but when we're talking about this increase in capacity, that's what we're talking about, addressing the whole individual, not just like you said, some of the, you need the foundational stuff.
That's
You need a
right.
job, you need some place to live, but most importantly, what does your support system look like?
Right.
And how do you start pouring back into the support system that supported you while you were incarcerated? Oftentimes, I know I talk to many individuals who feel like there's such a burden that they don't even really want to fully engage with their family because they've said that they've done so much for me and I can't pour back into them. So that could be something as simple as making sure that when individuals are coming to our office where we have $100 Stop and Shop cards that they can take and bring back to the family because they're bringing something back into the home, that could sort of start the rebuilding process. So hiring a clinician on staff is going to be critical, but also partnering with organizations that do that family reunification and community reunification is going to be important.
Yeah.
Dealing with the stigma is something that the city can't fix. It's a community conversation that we need to
Exactly.
be a part of. So
And you need to build the infrastructure for that work
Absolutely.
to happen. And I think it's really important as part of the safety net, right? Because coming back, the best way you're going to be set up for success is if you have that support.
Absolutely.
And whatever that looks like. So that is, I think, one of the key points that I think oftentimes gets lost in these conversations. So, but it's just something for you all to consider bringing into the fold. With that, though, I will also say that, you know, as part of the family supports, there's also an opportunity for BPS because there are a lot of young people who have incarcerated loved ones,
Yes.
and there's a lot of stigma that exists, even
Yes.
with our little ones.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, going back to Resource-Rich Coordination Poor, through the organization that I founded, we worked specifically with students who had incarcerated loved ones and found ways to connect them to their loved ones, their parents.
yeah.
And that's part of helping them come back home.
Agreed.
So I think that there's an opportunity there for you all to look at with Boston Public Schools in particular, to see if there's some work there. I'll reserve the next round of my questions for round 2.
Council, could I just add one point? That was one of the sort of impetus around pulling returning citizens away from this public safety space and putting it into this human service cabinet so it could be more integrated intentionally with some of the great work that's not only happening in the human service cabinet, but the rest of the departments, because the population that we're serving is represented in every department that the city serves. So there needs to be some level of coordinated efforts in that space. So I agree with you fully.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
Chair.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. I'll ask more of questions on the budget, and then we'll go more programmatic type of questions, if you don't mind. When you look at the office, the cabinet, Human Service Cabinet, your H Strong received or is proposed, the administration is proposing a about 20% increase in H Strong administration, but around almost 26% decrease in H Strong operations. Can you tell me why that is?
That is a great question, Madam Chair. I don't have that data in front of me, but what I do know is that I know currently they're going through a comp and class analysis to really make sure, as far as from an equity lens, that folks, especially in the human services field, are compensated according to the market. But not exactly sure as to the decrease in operations. In that 20% increase, I do see a 12.5% increase overall.
For the entire department?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I guess if you can submit that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
And then I've asked the administration to submit it as well, but I'm still waiting. I've asked months ago. So, and then, you know, I see where the monies are going, right? Like transportation, program partnerships, an increase of 153.87%. And then I guess I'm wondering about, you know, the program, senior repair program?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how much money they're gonna get?
I do not.
Okay. I would like to know, because I would like to increase it. The community has expressed that there isn't enough funds in that.
Okay.
And then, you know, if we keep going, so 8 strong overall, about 12.5 increase, exactly 12.5 increase. Boston Center for Youth and Families, just about, you know, 0.25% decrease. And then the program breakdown for its budget is that administration and policy will get about a 1% decrease. Child care and out of school time, just 0.36, so less than 0.5, right? Like less than 1% decrease. And then sports and fitness, 2.87% increase. And if we're talking dollar amounts, that's $156,557 increase. And the proposed is 5.6 million for sports and fitness. And then youth and families, a decrease of 1%. Veterans, an increase of 1.5%. Disability Commission, an increase of 7%. And then if you keep going down, it seems like some things are prioritized and some things are not. Are you part of the process of submitting your recommendations to the administration, or are these recommendations solely from the administration?
So I came in at a time, I just started 6 weeks ago, and so I was in at a time in which the budget was already submitted. Yeah, so I am owning as it currently stands, and supporting as it currently stands.
And supporting it?
Yeah.
Thank you. My concern is that mostly it would appear that the stuff that's related to youth services and preventative measures to crisis in poor Black and brown communities are taking more of a decrease, and the priorities are, you know, obviously other areas, and all of these areas, all of these departments are super important. So I know it's a difficult thing to figure out, like where we're allocating funds. In terms of programmatic, and I'll go to Office of Returning Citizens first, since that's a priority, so we can get this out the way. At least for this hearing, is a priority. For affordable housing, what affordable housing is available, like currently? Like, do you have an idea of what's available that returning citizens can actually access?
Through the office?
Through the office.
Other than we make referrals to the Department of Neighborhood Development, but in terms of what the office actually has in its possession, it's none.
Thank you. And what efforts are being made to expand these options?
I think a portion of our budget request is to talk about some of that contracted space. If there are individuals that are external partners that offer housing options, having the opportunity to possibly establish a relationship with them. But I think some of these conversations I've had around this housing space is really talking about some of the existing dollars that are being allocated around housing in the bigger pot, saying that some should be intentionally outlined for individuals impacted by CORE and individuals who are returning citizens. I don't believe that money for housing should live within ORC. I think it should live within the larger portion, and some money should be intentionally carved out for that population.
Thank you. Can you describe sort of the program standing today? Like, I know that we talked in portions, but right now, your office, like, what could I access your office for?
So what you would do is you would register, and through that online registration process, you will outline the services that you were looking to tap into. It could be everything from employment training to help around securing health insurance. It could be some of that transitional housing piece, which would be the sober living. So you would go through that form. You would mark off not only who you are, but how long you've actually been a returning citizen, your current status. Are you on probation? You will fill that form out, then you will receive a phone call within 24 hours to one of our reentry specialists, which would be either Robert Turner or Rupert Saunders. And through that phone call, we will have an initial phone conversation, and then we'll bring you into the office for an actual real assessment to make sure we're making those referrals. So currently, the office is a clearinghouse of resources for returning citizens. There are no programming per se around. Right now, you couldn't come to our office and receive mental health supports in terms of in-house mental health support. We would have to refer those out. But because we have relationship with internal and external partners, we can refer you out to those agencies. So what you would do is you would fill out a registration form, then we will have a follow-up assessment, and through that assessment, we would make sure that we were getting you put in place to those referrals that will help you close those gaps or those needs that you've identified.
So intake and referral.
Absolutely.
And what do you feel like you have enough staff now to do that?
No, which is
And-
why we're adding. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're adding,
So the goal is to not only hire a director, but to hire an additional 5 staff people to help with that. Not only to do that intake and referral piece, but to do more of the intentional programmatical stuff. We're talking about the family reunification piece, which is actually building. Some of the conversations we've had with GBIO is talking about how do we build that reentry ecosystem that the service providers that are in this space, whether it be on the public side or on the private, nonprofit, community-based organization side, can be in this one space, and we can have sort of a hub model where individuals can tap into those resources, and then we all could be supported in this space. So,
is that what you meant by a more comprehensive program?
absolutely.
And
But
would 5 help you reach that capacity?
I believe so. I think in a gradual step, yes. I think if we're talking about mirroring what Washington, D.C. is doing, it would take us some time to get there. I think we need to start. It'll be difficult to go from a staff of 2 to a staff of 20 now. I think it needs to be a gradual build, and I think that build needs to ensure that we have best practices and ensure that this approach that we're taking is the right approach. And I believe it is, but we want to make sure that we have some empirical evidence to sort of back that up.
How do our returning citizens know about this office?
A lot of it is done through, so what Robert Turner and Rupert Saunders do, they reach out to our reentry specialists that are actually behind the wall, whether it be in partnership with the House of Corrections or in partnership with the Department of Corrections, to actually contact those reentry specialists who are working with individuals who are returning. Other than that, a lot of it is done by promoting our office through some of our other partners, whether it be through Strive or whether it be through some of our community centers, putting information up there, make sure that we are posting online. But again, capacity-wise, are there corners and individuals that we're missing? Absolutely. Are we getting to every population that we should be getting to where everyone knows about us? Absolutely. Which is why this budget increase is going to be so necessary, that we can actually make sure that individuals are fully aware of what the office does. And I think that's probably the most important part, that we are very clear on what the role is, so individuals aren't coming to the office with expectations that we cannot meet. And I think that was a lot of the frustration. The expectations around the office never met the capacity, and that's what we're trying to make sure that those two things can actually be closer aligned.
This ecosystem or hub of all services that you speak of, are you putting out efforts now to collaborate with community agencies that are currently doing this work, or is that in the future when you build capacity? I
think we've started the initial conversations. We previously, the office had an advisory council, but I think I don't want to call it defunct, but I think, again, it's about expectation. We want to make sure that there are clear expectations of what the council would be like, and also with this transition in leadership, I want to make sure that this new leadership group has an opportunity to build and support and create this ecosystem and partnership that is sort of fitting the needs of today versus what the needs were in 2019. So we've had some initial conversations with some of our partners, both on the private state side as well as some of our community-based organizations. But I think we're just at the beginning stages, and we have to get some things codified. We have to get some sort of expectations and roles figured out, but I think we're in the beginning stages.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Pope. We'll hear from the public testimonies that people that are here already. First, we have Leslie Credle, if you're still here, Vincent Ware, then Carmen Clarkin, Arlene Chase, and I think this is Judith Gooding. Is it Judith? Oh, sorry. I can't read that. I can't make that out. But Leslie and then Vincent?
Vincent's going to go first.
Okay. Mr. Ware, yes?
Assalamu alaikum,
Alaikum
Madam
salam
Chair,
wa
councilors. My name is Vincent Ware. I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Civic Engagement for the Muslim Society of Boston. We are a member of GBIO. We're actually one of 61 membership institution organizations of GBIO, which makes up about 110,000 members overall. We're here today because we clearly support the Office of Returning Citizens, but we got here at this point because we did a numerous amount of listening sessions with our community residents. And reentry was the main theme that kept coming up over and over and over again. So we felt like it was only made sense for us to address this during our mayoral candidate forum, which we got a commitment from Mayor Wu at that particular time, and numerous, the majority of the councils at that time committed to expanding the Office of Returning Citizens to $1.9 million. And we're here to say, we thank you. We support the efforts. We approve the proposed budget. We also would like to thank Councilor Rusi and Dr. Falk for really, providing us some guidance and some insight. So we're here to support, and we hope that this Office of Returning Citizens become a model for the nation to follow. We know that the $1.9 million is just the beginning. We know that there's much, much more that will be needed in order for us to take this leadership role in the nation. But we also know that it's very important that the community grant aspect, because in order for us to really improve the quality of life of returning citizens here in the city of Boston, we need the community-based organizations in the Office of Returning Citizens to work hand in hand. And those particular organizations that are on the ground, doing the work on a day-to-day basis, they need to build their capacity. So we're asking that that we continue to, look forward and be progressive in our thoughts as it relates to, improving the capacity not only of the Office of Returning Citizens, but also the capacity of the community-based organizations that are providing the assistance and doing the work on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Leslie?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
Councilor Rufus. Leslie Credo, I'm the founder, executive director of Justice for Housing. I stand in solidarity with our community partner, GBIO. We're one of many organizations who are members of GBIO organization and stand in solidarity to ensure that the mayor commits the $1.9 million that we advocated for the Office of Returning Citizens. In addition to ensuring that that office is funded, we also want to ensure that our community organizations, who are led by directly affected individuals like myself, I'm formerly incarcerated, who are doing the work in the community, also receive capacity support from the offices of returning citizens and other offices from the city. There are organizations like myself who are doing the work and have not had the opportunity to receive any support from city agencies like Crossroads, We Are Better Together. I heard you mention the Gavin Foundation and Victory programs, but these organizations, Crossroads, We Are Better Together, are led by formerly incarcerated people who are doing similar work. Just like Project Turnaround, who does job support, Partakers, and Justice of Housing, of course. we house 36 formerly incarcerated individuals without any resources. So if we had capacity, imagine what we could do. Justice for Housing, we have qualitative and quantitative data that ensures that we want to get to the root causes of incarceration, right? Not just housing people, providing that holistic approach, like Mr. Rufus has insinuated. So we would like to build the SRO buildings, right? And have a holistic services throughout our structure. But there's organizations like Gavin Victory that are referring their constituents to us who are doing the work. And so it doesn't make sense for them to receive resources and then referring to the grassroots who are boots on the ground and or led. If you ask formerly incarcerated people who they would like to receive services from, they would like to receive services from people that look like them and who are the experts in the field. Does that mean time? Is that what that bell means?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
You typically have 2 minutes, but I gave you 3.
Okay.
Can you wrap it up in the next 20
Sure.
seconds?
I just want to say that right now we're looking for resources to build a SRO building and to provide those services for our community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen Clarkin. Then Arlene Chase.
Hello, my name is Carmen Clarkin, and I'm an advocate for Justice for Housing, a grassroots nonprofit that provides reentry and stabilization services to justice-involved individuals. I'd like to thank the council today for hearing my testimony. We all want safe and healthy lives. We all want Boston to thrive. But if we don't help those who are most marginalized, those who are most in need, we cannot make it the best city that it can be. We're missing out on so much potential, and to harness this potential, supporting reentry is critical, and yet it remains abhorrently under-resourced. Not addressing these issues is not only morally irresponsible, but fiscally irresponsible. As my colleagues have discussed, the collateral consequences of incarceration are costly on so many levels. People's lives are at stake, their children's lives are at stake, and the well-being of our city is at stake. COVID starkly illustrated how many of these issues that we face today and that have been discussed here are intimately connected. And it's shown a bright light on the cracks in our system. It's up to us to work together towards filling those cracks, to work towards stopping the revolving door between homelessness and incarceration, and that requires us to focus on reentry. Now, in this moment, we have an opportunity to change. We have an opportunity to create a stronger and healthier foundation for Boston. And so I implore the City Council to commit funding and uphold the agreement with the mayor to provide funding to the Office of Returning Citizens and create substantial community grants for grassroots providers who are on the ground doing this work every day. If we want to create a more equitable society, if we want to create a stronger and healthier Boston, it is integral that we create intentional solutions. So community organizations are doing this work, but we require support. The need is great, the resources are few, but with your commitment, we have the opportunity to change numerous lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Clark and Ms. Arlene Chase.
Madam Chairwoman, councilors, my name's Arlene Chase. Do I need to speak louder, or am I okay?
Thank you.
All right. I was born in Boston. I still have family living in Brighton, and I'm here as part of Temple of Muna's social and racial justice group to ask that the budget coming up has that $1.9 million that's so important for the Office of Returning Citizens, and $800,000 for community grants to get grassroots organizations able to help with affordable housing and the other issues that face people coming out of prison. We all know how the pandemic fractured our society by isolation. Imagine how much worse it is for people coming out of prison. They need the support to reestablish their lives, and having affordable housing, which is tough to find in Boston, is essential to have a home base to start from. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chase. Dr. Folk has another meeting that he has to attend to. If you want to make a final statement before you go, you have the floor. I think Council Mejia wants you to stay. And Dr. Falk is saying that he needs to leave immediately. It's up to you. Can you take a question before you go?
I can.
Thank you. And I just want to thank the advocates so far who have offered testimony. One thing that I should have mentioned earlier is that my office has filed a budget amendment so that we can support the community-based organizations that are already doing the work, especially those run by formerly incarcerated folks, to help provide the resources necessary, and to also make sure that we need to build capacity of ORC. We've talked about this, but ORC alone isn't going to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
It's going to be interdepartmental. I agree with you, Dr. Falk. A lot of the work in housing needs to come out of the Mayor's Office of Housing in partnership with you. But like, you know, Leslie just testified, Just for Housing is doing the work. So how can we use ORC to really help build capacity internally, but also help build the capacity externally of our community organizations? We have to go slow internally so that we can build a model and, like you said, have that empirical evidence. But I think it is critically important that, you know, I didn't even know about that there was an advisory council before, that we maybe rebuild that and that we think about how we're partnering with communities. And I think that $800,000 budget amendment that we filed hopefully will help get us there. So I just wanted to put that on the record and wanted you to hear that. I have questions too about what is the future of the Office of Public Safety in the Human Services. Like, there's just a lot of changes happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I think, some statements that were in the budget book about the human services that I think, you know, it says here that the cabinet enforces all anti-discrimination laws and protection of the jurisdiction of the city, but that's not my understanding of what. So I think that would be helpful for us to get a narrative of sort of what is the future of the Office of Public Safety from within the Human Services cabinet, and to you know, get a clear understanding about the vision of the office as well. So more of like a statement. I don't know if there's anything you want to respond to there.
No, I'm just going to say that just similarly with the creation of Youth Development Fund, the city recognized that there were community-based organizations that were doing work that needs to be supported in this ecosystem. I think the request that you made, the budget amendment that you're filing is right in line with that. Recognize that there are external partners that are doing work currently that are outside of the Office of Returning Citizens but are part of the same ecosystem, that it makes sense that we are intentional around supporting those agencies. So absolutely, and I can make sure I give you some more information around what the Office of Public Safety, what the new iteration is going to be. Much of that work in terms of the programmatic work is going to live under the Human Service Cabinet, so the work isn't going anywhere. I just think it's going to be buttressed with more support from Chief Marceau.
Thank you, Dr.
And I wanted to also thank the advocates as well for their keeping me on my toes. That's the political way I say it. And thank you, Madam Chair, for having me, and thank you, councilors, as well.
Thank you. Dr. Falk, Council Mejia would also like to.
Yeah, so I know you have to go, but I'll be really quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So two things. One is I'm on record in supporting additional funding to support the Office of Returning Citizen, and I'm really grateful to the advocates who came here and had their voices heard. I also just want to put on the record is that one of the modes of community engagement that you mentioned is online. And I just want to know for the record that there are a lot of folks who struggle to read and write.
Absolutely.
Especially for folks who have had interrupted education. And when you talk about the school to prison pipeline, we have young people who are coming at DYS that end up right back in the system. So as you start thinking about building infrastructure, can you just talk to about how you're going to close that gap? Because not everybody knows how to read and write.
I agree. So I think oftentimes the engagement efforts we put around political campaigns, we need to have that same type of engagement efforts for service delivery. So that means door to door. That means ensuring that we have things that are, in terms of making sure that we're accessible in terms of all languages, making sure that we are also having conversations in places that we might not often have these conversations. That might be showing up to barbershops. That might be going to some of our sort of non-traditional meeting places and ensuring that folks are aware of that information. So I agree totally. I said online, just want to make sure, but that's sort of how we do the registration forms, but we need to have as many mechanisms as possible to ensure that we're accessible to all.
Yeah, and that goes back to understanding that the community organizations who are actually doing the work, who are boots on the ground, who have the relationships with folks, that there is some funding set aside to help support them and helping you thrive, right? Like
Agreed.
you have to see them as your main resource
Agreed.
of being able to do this work, because there's no way that you're going to be able to do it without them.
I agree.
So I just want to just give you all that. And thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Councilman Mejia. I too would like to go on record that I'm in support of this increase, considering that the amendment process is going on right now, or phase of the budget. The issue that we're facing, or that we will be facing, is that where we're taking money to reallocate to these funds, and whether or not the administration or the mayor's office the mayor will veto, because we will have like a list of amendments and say that out of the, just a hypothetical, $30 million that we want to reallocate move around and create this amendment, that they only want to move just $5 million of that. This would mean that they are also making recommendations as to exactly what they think could be moved or not moved, and they will explain the logistics. I hope that they will explain the logistics, but then it's a matter of us saying, no, we really want this amendment as a whole to go through, whether it's a list of 30, but as a whole to go through. And then we would have to count up to 9 votes to override that if it gets vetoed, if we can't agree. So just wanted to explain that process. I appreciate the work that you're doing and look forward to doing more with you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. Dr. Falk, you're certainly free to go. Mr. Gooding, if you can make your way down, please, so we can finish our in-person testimonies.
Madam Chair, Madam Chairman, councilors, thank you for allowing me to be here. Got a little voice problem right now. My name is Jamal Gooding. I am a formerly incarcerated individual. I am a part of the GBIO transition team, as well as a member of the Greater Boston Reentry Task Force, and also the executive director and founder of PAC, People Affecting Community Change. I am thankful to be here today, and wanted to start by again thanking the mayor and all of you. It was I who had an opportunity to speak with, at that time, Mayor Wu candidate, and requested that she would support the DC model for the Office of Returning Citizens, and to fund that office with $1.9 million, as well as being committed to staffing it with 50% of its staff being returning citizens. And we got that, and we were very thankful. And I stand before you today in full support of that initiative, as well as additional funding that is needed for those organizations that are doing the on-the-ground work right now. We absolutely want to thank Rep. Ruthie, who has championed this and stood beside us and come before you. What it's done for those members that are a part of our base is know that our voice does count. When we have someone who hears our voices, who brings it to this level, and who is absolutely able to bring about sustainable change in the lives of our community members. Before going on, I'd like to acknowledge 26 of our other partners that are live watching this here. And take a moment. Boston has an opportunity right now to be the leader in this space and showing that its citizens really matter. When we talk about returning citizens, we're not just talking about the men and women who are incarcerated. We're talking about our family members and the next generation of our children. And so when we talk about the additional funds that are needed to support this endeavor, I want to actually say why. So I provide transportation, identification, housing, workforce development, workforce placement, and I am here today to offer the Office of Returning Citizens 100 rooms available for returning citizens, men and women, on July 1st. So we did that. This is without funding. This is men and women that are transitioning back out and need the fundamentals: ID, housing, work, transportation. But the wraparound services that go with this, which was mentioned this morning. We have 6 diverse mental health experts. We teach effective communication, critical thinking, financial literacy, as well as some other recreational services. In order for this to work, while the ORC is being formalized, there are men and women that are coming out that are in transition, and the only way that they're able to survive right now is through the relationships that this office, the ORC, the counselors, and the community members are able to tap into and connect individuals with. So I thank you for hearing me today. We beg for your support for those additional funds that are needed. But more so than that, we ask that you continue to build this relationship so we can keep our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. We have one person to testify on Zoom, Mr. Mark Jones. Whenever you're ready, please state your name and affiliation.
I'm Mark Jones. I am a member of GBIO and of the GBIO Reentry Steering Committee. I am a returning citizen, and I'm here today to talk about my own personal experience with respect to housing, and to really make real the challenges that we all face. I think we all understand where Boston housing market is, and it's well beyond this group or any of us to change that. But as a returning citizen, we have special obstacles, and I think it's very much within the power of this group to provide the time and the temporary housing that's necessary for any of us to cobble together an opportunity to actually make our way into real world housing and resume our place as productive citizens. So my circumstances are incredibly advantaged, and I think the contrast between the picture I'm going to present and the picture that many of us returning citizens have, is very instructive. So I'm a first-time offender convicted on a non-violent financial crime. I've been out 2 years. I'm actually employed by an accounting firm, and with that plus Social Security, I have a low 6-figure income. I'm actively supported by my church. I'm a single working professional, non-smoking, no pets, good income, strong references. So in fact, for me, profiling actually works. That's a benefit for me. And I've done the work. I've met with 10 or 12 real estate agents, signed up for online accounts, receive 8 or 10 listings a day, and have gone directly to 10, 15 buildings. But I've been at this for 3 months, and with all the advantages I have, I don't have a place to live, and I have to have a place in 3 months or 3 weeks. So what's the issue? The first thing is, on every application, I have to disclose my felony conviction. And we're not a protected class, and there's a lot of supportive careful language around, the people that I talk to, but the bottom line is, it's a kick out of the application. Even though I have an income, I have a very poor credit record as a result of my crime, and every every rental agent I've been to talks about a 650 credit score, and you simply can't get that overnight. And then there's no way to even tell your story, because with the computer algorithms and the outsourced leasing companies and the qualification metrics, there's no way to get in front of somebody and try to to talk about who you really are, what your journey's been, what sort of support you have. So these are the these are the real life practical barriers to the goal that we all want, which is to provide a pathway for returning citizens to get housing in a normal fashion. And
thank you so much,
think,
Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize that we are moving quickly to close this hearing. We were scheduled to end at 12. Now I'll take any final remarks from my colleagues, and then I'll make mine, and then we'll close. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for indulging me on the front end before Dr. Falk had to go. So I'm just gonna, I don't have any further questions. I think I put everything on the record, my information request, and I look forward to working with you, Chief Musso. So,
thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Mejia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to ask any more questions, but I just want to flag, as you know, I sent you some information in regards to the uptick in violence in immigrant communities in terms of support services that are language specific. So just want, as you all start thinking about allocating budgets and resources, that to be really super mindful that there are a lot of folks who need support services in multiple languages around some of the violence that's happening across the city, that we just kind of want to make sure that we're monitoring that and that we're supporting it. And I'm not going to ask any more questions because we're done for this particular one. I'll send you an email.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Mejia. I think that it's incredible that we spend $400 million in police, and we spend just $29 million in youth, and then we spend less than $2 million in returning citizens. And this is an office that you heard Dr. Falk talk about. There is no capacity to actually build services or contractual services. There's only capacity for intake and referral. And still, he needs 5 more. The office needs probably 20 more, but I understand the gradual progression of building capacity. We're a reactionary city. We have so many issues to work on. We're so happy to have you, Chief Musso, to be here, that someone who understands the issue in racial inequalities and across the board in services, but also someone who is open to work with us in changing not only policies, programs, but also hopefully that we can equip each other in preparing for the next budget cycle, and hopefully that we are amending this to increase the budget this time around, but as well as, moving forward in how we prepare to do better in making sure that we have enough funds to have the capacity to aid, but also thinking, as Dr. Falk mentioned, in terms of ecosystems, in a holistic approach of how we can implement preventative services to our citizens prior, right, to our youth, before they get to the part where we have to address the returning citizens, right? We don't want, as Councilor Mejia mentioned, to build or continue to perpetuate these prison pipelines and then only allocate less than $2 million to the people that a system has failed, or to the people that we now cannot support. And the people that return mostly to Roxbury, District 7, my district, and to poor communities like Mattapan and Dorchester. I thank you for your time. Any statements, if you have any, for closing remarks, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to thank you once again for just time and opportunity and just your complete advocacy and support to the councils as well. I think the questions and just wraparound support is definitely just spot on. To those in attendance and those that testified, the passion and advocacy is extremely important. I'm excited for this office to get off the ground. I think it's a really unique opportunity to, as you mentioned, go against systems, right? And that's exactly what it is that we're going up against. And these systems are designed in a way and they're working as they were intended. And what it is we need to do is continue to be able to buck up against those systems to make sure that we are stopping it. We going upstream. It doesn't make sense for us to figure out what's happening downstream. We are going upstream and continuously go upstream. So what I'm grateful for is that this is just the beginning, but not the end. So I look forward to continued partnership and welcome the support from those who are working closely with us as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Rougen has a second closing remark.
Sorry, this is something that I meant to say earlier, is that I just want to put it on record that the administration heard from the City Council that there is tremendous interest in the ARPA money for us to see an allocation towards housing needs for formerly incarcerated individuals, right? So we're talking about, you made excellent points about how we're talking about small numbers and figures here compared to the way the police department and other departments are being funded. And I think you also made an excellent point at the ARPA hearing about the racism involved and why certain things are labeled a crisis and other things are not labeled a crisis. So if we acknowledge that housing for formerly incarcerated folks is an issue of crisis, especially for our Black and brown folks who are returning to our neighborhoods, then we need to put the money there. And so I just want to make sure, because not everyone was at that hearing last week, but there's some overlap. And so I just wanted folks to know that we are advocating that the $400 million, I think it's 350, I don't know, you can say, Madam Chair, that we have for ARPA money, that we allocate that. There's a big push for housing, that within that we're carving out money for our formerly incarcerated folks. So just wanted to put that on the record so that folks in the audience and that folks listening know that that's something we're advocating for as well, and there's a lot of support from that on the council.
Thank you so much. And to the folks that signed up late, I do apologize. This hearing was scheduled to close at 12. I look forward to anyone who wants to contact our office, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Loujen, and Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, myself, to speaking with you, scheduling to speak with you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the testimonies today. Meeting adjourned.